I'm Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in. Hi, welcome to another episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. Today is another one focused on screens, the Smart Parent's Guide to Screens and Social Skills. And I want to share with you a little bit of a funny thing first off, and that's that I am re-recording this episode because I just recorded the whole thing, but with no sound. So there was a video of me talking and no audio, which is not great for a podcast, which is pretty much primarily audio. And the irony for me is that it's called the Smart Parent's Guide to Screens, and I've just totally stuffed it up. But that's okay. I'm back. I'm going to do it again. Um, Hopefully, I'll remember what I've just said so that it will flow just as smoothly as the first one, which was pretty good. But I'm sorry to say you're never going to hear it. Um, so anyway, Smart Parents Guide to Screens and Social Skills. That's the crossover bit today because we all know about screens and the challenges that that presents. But I wanted to talk about the positive sides of screens for social skills, or not skills, but social interactions and connections. Um, but there are some downsides. So I'm going to present to you today a little bit about the positives for social interactions that screens can bring, but then also what to just keep in mind about the risks and how we can try and navigate the two in a smart way. Um, Screens play a huge role in our kids' lives, but also in their social lives. So it's about how to balance online and offline connections. I'm going to talk about using tech to support social development, how the quality of the interactions can affect what's happening, and then also maybe some of the signs to watch out for if you think the screen use is tipping into the negative rather than the positive or the neutral. So, how to balance screen relationships and social interactions. I guess there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. A couple of points of research. The first point of research is that it indicates that some use of screen time, and particularly in terms of gaming, can be pro-social for kids, which means helpful in terms of social interactions. The reason for that is that screens are a part and computer games are a part of many children's lives. And so it gives kids an opportunity to play together on screens. But the thing is, I guess it gives them a shared knowledge and understanding in order to be able to connect with other kids. That means having something to talk about at school because of those shared interests. And even in primary school, lots of times kids will play games in the playground that are modeled off computer games. So, for example, might play Pokemon in the playground where kids pretend to be different Pokemon and someone goes and catches them, like in Pokemon Go. Or kids will play Minecraft a lot, and so someone will be the zombie character and someone will be something else. And so having that access to the games and sometimes even videos, if they're watching it on YouTube, can um, help in those social interactions with kids at school because you can talk about it and you can play the game the way everyone else can. The other part I wanted to talk about is how screens offer an opportunity for kids to connect with each other in a different way. And so, if your child is not one that is one who finds it easier to connect online, then this is an easier way for them to have those social relationships and interactions. I feel like it's worth mentioning too the some research out there that's called or well, it's referred to as the double empathy problem. Uh, it's funny because it's not, I don't know, it's a funny term, but basically what the research shows is that um, autistic kids have really good ability to engage with and interact with other autistic kids. Neurotypical kids have good ability to interact with neurotypical kids. So there's no issues there in terms of the interactions. The challenge comes from when we've got a neurotypical kid trying to interact with an autistic kid, and that's when the differences in how those social interactions happen mean that then there's a bit of a challenge. Um, Old ways of thinking about it were that then, autistic kids can learn to do it differently, the way the majority does it. That's a little bit unfair because it's expecting just one person in that interaction to change and bear responsibility for the challenge. And we always know, like any parent of more than one child knows if there's a sibling disagreement, both of them are contributing to it, right? And so it's the same thing in terms of interaction between an autistic kid and a non-autistic kid. It's just the feature of both parties being different that's contributing to it. And so I think when we're talking about social interactions, it's not about teaching social skills. It's about having a place where your child can connect with people that they feel comfortable communicating with and interacting with. They can be their true self and are appreciated by their peers, and they appreciate the other kids for being themselves as well. And if that's easier for your child to do, well, not easier, but if that's easy for your child to do online, playing games together with other kids, then that's great. That's a really good social thing. I I think then, so there are lots of positives, I guess, is the first little point to make about interacting socially using screens. The part that is maybe where the nuance comes in is thinking about the types of interactions that your child has. There's I think sometimes the people can judge the difference between real world interactions and online interactions and friendships. And I guess that's what I was trying to get at by talking about how people prefer to interact differently. And I think we should move away from thinking about it in terms of right or wrong. And I don't see that online friendships are of a lower quality than um, what we'd call real world or in-person friendships and relationships. That's not the point I want to make here. But what I think is different sometimes is the quality. And so if you can try and think about ensuring that your kid is having interactions online that are maybe one-on-one interactions or small group interactions, that is a lot better in terms of the quality of a social relationship than types of engagement online where it's one person talking to many people or one person kind of talking out to the void. Part of this is that what I'm talking about is based on the research in the book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Um, and he talks about how it's that one-on-one interaction that mimics closely what we're designed to do as humans, that is a really good social interaction. So, for example, if you think about it with little kids, it's maybe FaceTiming grandma, and primary school kids, it's playing online with one friend or FaceTiming a friend while you're playing together, or even in a small group, like, 5 or 6 of, oh, yeah, if you 5 or 6 is a random number I picked, but that kind of group of friends, if you're playing Minecraft together and you're on a call together, that all really mimics what we're designed to do as, humans, because it's small enough of an interaction that we get feedback from the other person. It's a genuine connection. And if you compare that to other things like being on social media a lot, where maybe you are on, um, Snapchat or TikTok or whatever else, you're one person talking to lots of people, and it's a lot harder to get that genuine connection there. It's also a different interaction than just watching YouTube, which is not that connection with another person either. It's just passively consuming the content. So, in summary, there's lots of social benefits to interacting with other kids online. It's important to keep in mind the quality of the relationship when you're considering what your child does. And that's the bit where the smart guide comes in, because if you're really thinking about how your child's doing it, then you're fine. You'll be on top of it. The other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the quality as well is thinking about how sometimes it becomes easier for kids to interact online when that's what they're used to most of the time. And for a lot of kids, that's okay. And if that's the place they feel comfortable and they're getting that social interaction, that's awesome. But what I would suggest looking out for is when it becomes a little bit difficult for your child to then interact with people in that in person way. Because there are some times when we do need to do that, whether it's getting help from somebody in the office, whether it's reaching out to talk to a new person at school or someone in the playground. And so watch out for if your child seems to then become so used to doing stuff on screen that those in-person things are difficult. Because what happens in my experience is that when those things are difficult, anxiety increases, and our natural urge is to avoid it because it's uncomfortable. And then it only gets harder and harder, and we get more and more anxious. So, if you can try and keep a little bit of a balance in there, that will really serve your child really well. So we talked a little bit about how social interactions online can be helpful, how to know what are good quality interactions, and then also a little bit about how to think about balancing that online stuff with the in-person stuff as well. Uh, I wanted to talk a little bit then about how to use technology to enhance social development. The pros, I guess, are that online communities can be a really safe space for neurodivergent kids. And I think that all kids deserve to have a safe place, a safe group that they can communicate with and be social with. And so this is to reassure you too that if for your kid that's online, it doesn't necessarily mean that the quality is worse than an in-person interaction. Um, there also are lots of great places like, oh gosh, I can't, it's not coming to me at the moment, but lots of places that can provide mentoring and support groups and interest-based groups for autistic kids. The I Can network, that's the one. Um, that are really, really good for kids to find their people and to have safe spaces where they can enjoy interacting with other people. Um, yeah, as I mentioned, the thing to watch out for is maybe that and this is what Jonathan Haidt talks about in The Anxious Generation a bit as well, is to that sometimes the risk is that lots of online interaction, if our kids are having a lot of it, that can replace those real world opportunities for social interaction. Um, that's the place to get the balance right. But what I would say is that it's again about the quality of the relationship. So if your kid's mostly doing all their interacting online, but it's either one on one or it's in a small group, that's not something to necessarily automatically be worried about. It's only worrying if they're doing a lot of online stuff like, watching YouTube that's not necessarily interacting, lots of social media stuff that's just kind of not mimicking that same one-on-one or small group interaction. Um, and as well as that, then they don't have in-person interaction, then that can be really the challenging part for social development. I wanted to talk quickly about some of the things to watch out for that will let you know that maybe things have tipped into the negative balance for your child. And the first one is, I guess there are 2 points, and one is about, I mean, they're both about mental health. One is if you notice mental health particularly, but then the other one is some behavioral signs that you might see that can indicate some mental health, difficulties. So the first one is if there is, things like a lot of anxiety or depression you notice around screens and the relationships with that online activity. So, for example, it might be if kids are really worried and on edge when they're not online because they feel like they need to get back there to that stuff. Um, if it's causing anxiety like that, that's something to watch out for. Maybe more, depression or low mood kind of things as well. So if when your child's offline, they seem to just have a really low mood, not very happy, have trouble finding interest in things. Those 2 things can indicate that, perhaps screen use is contributing to some mental health, difficulties there, and that's always worth talking to somebody about, to help I guess assess first what's happening, how concerned to be, and then put in place some things that can help your child. Um, you can do that by seeing your GP, seeing a psychologist, or if you have a pediatrician, seeing them as well. The second part is that sometimes you might not notice the mood things, but you might notice some behavior changes. And behavior changes is another way that can indicate mood difficulties as well. So as part of that, it could be withdrawal from in-person relationships or interests, because pulling away and withdrawing is often a sign of either anxiety or depression. Um, yeah, and or maybe also more difficulty interacting in-person settings. Sometimes that's even with siblings or with parents as well. So if you notice those things, it's probably worth seeking some extra help and having a conversation with your child about how they're going, how connected they feel to their family and to their friends, and um, trying to understand it from their point of view and support them by um, putting in place some strategies or ideas that can help them manage all of these things. So I hope this has given you some reassurance, maybe that screens and screen use and that kind of thing isn't something we always need to be worried about. There are some positive aspects of it, and particularly for neurodivergent kids, but that the quality of relationships is the thing to focus on. And then also just keeping in mind that there's a bit of a balance between screens and the in person world, and making sure that you've got an eye on mental health, and we talked through some of the signs for that. So Interestingly, my kids, it's a public holiday today as I'm recording this, and my kids were all on their screens this morning, as they always, as most kids tend to do. But when I recorded the first time anyway, they were all out together walking the dog because I'd said, okay, you've had some, now it's time to be in the world again. And so luckily they, today were fine with that. It's all about balance, I think. And I'm hoping that this has really helped you with some ideas about balance and how you can achieve that for your family as well. So thanks so much for joining me again. I will be back with a guest next episode, I believe, and then after that, moving on to new topics. So if there's any that you have burning questions about, please let me know, and I will get into that. And I'm sure it will help. More than well, it will help you, but also lots of others. Parents always have the same questions as other people. So do reach out, and it's not just going to help you, it's going to help everybody. Thanks for listening again, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.